Throughout the many years I have consumed anime, there have been some anime that clearly have stood above the rest as either more or less memorable than others in both good and bad ways. We have shows like Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, which many, including me, would consider the greatest anime of all time, considering how it managed to continue its fantastic story with little to no dips in quality throughout the entire show. Then we also have shows like Guilty Crown, a show infamous for having the perfect first 12 episodes, to then proceed to nosedive down a cliff in the second half of the show, becoming more than well known for having a terrible second half. However, few shows have received as much praise as one with an incredibly misleading title. The title was chosen to make people take a second glance at it due to the absurdity of it. I am of course talking about no other anime but the anime called Rascal Does Not Dream of a Bunny Girl Senpai, an anime that received an incredible amount of praise from just about everyone when it originally aired in 2018 for many reasons, yet after that you would rarely hear of it. So let me tell you about what it is that not only makes Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai amazing, but also about what it is that makes the entire Rascal Does Not Dream series of movies and TV shows amazing. But before we truly get into the video, there is just one thing I have to ask you guys. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more videos like this, then please hit the subscribe button below, as it lets me and the YouTube algorithm know that you enjoy content like this. Now let's get back into the video. If you know anything about the Rascal Does Not Dream series, you are probably someone that has seen the titles and thought, what in the actual fuck kind of title is that? Which is understandable. You see, just like I kinda did with this video, although not fully, the Rascal Does Not Dream series, and especially its first season, does have a very clickbaity title, as you only see someone dressed in a bunny girl suit about 3 times throughout it. So now you might ask, why title it that? Well, it's a title that caught your attention, isn't it? It really is just that simple. And for the title of this video that you are watching, I kinda half clickbaited it, as a lot of people used to talk about the series when its first season aired, as well as when its first movie was released, but people kinda stopped talking about it to the point where I, along with multiple of my friends, did not know that there were 3 movies. 3 of them! Yeah, I thought there was only 1. So yeah, that is the reason for this video, but let's move on and talk about what the show is about. The Rascal Does Not Dream series is about a high school student by the name of Sakuta Asuzagawa. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. I will call him Sakuta for the rest of this video, who whilst at a library notices a girl walking around in a bunny girl costume. And he also notices that no one else in the library can see her. Sakuta decides to talk to this girl, who also happens to be his upperclassman at his school, who goes by the name of Mai Sakurajima, who I will be calling Mai for the rest of this video, who has developed a case of what they call puberty syndrome, which makes it so that most people can't see her. With puberty syndrome mentioned, I would like to go into that topic for a brief moment. You see, when I recently rewatched the series, I switched between the sub and the dub a couple times, so that I could check out both, especially since I remember the sub being amazing, and whilst the dub is fine, it is not remotely close to as good as the sub, so I wouldn't recommend it over the sub. Overall, the Japanese voice actors killed it, but especially Sakuta and Mai's voice actors, as they feel really like the perfect actors for the roles, to the point where it is potentially 2 of the best performances I have ever seen. In the dub, they call the syndrome leading to odd supernatural events happening, such as Mai disappearing from people's vision, Sakuta getting a wound on his chest suddenly whilst asleep, and Sakuta's little sister Kaede getting cuts and bruises on her body when being bullied online. Puberty syndrome. And that caught my attention, as when I watched the anime back in 2018 whilst it was airing, I remember it being called adolescence syndrome. And I thought that was just the dub changing it to make it fit with, for example, lip flaps. But then when I watched the subs on Crunchyroll, it was also called puberty syndrome there. At first I thought I just remembered it wrong, so I decided to watch Gigak's video as well as Mother Spaceman's video on the show. So it seems as if they just changed the subs at some point, which is for sure a nitpick, but I found it interesting that a change like it was made. The effects that people got from puberty syndrome had some kind of relation to the character's mental state and how society affected them as people. We have Maya, who became invisible to people in public after people in school started ignoring her and acting as if she was not there, as to not disturb her, as she is a famous actress and model and people don't want to get in her way, and so she carried the feeling of wanting to not be disturbed out of school, making it so that people wouldn't interact with her in public as they would read the room and think that she didn't want to be disturbed, which then led to people eventually not being able to see her. This could then be solved by Sakuta forcing people to acknowledge her as he runs out on the school grounds screaming his love confession to her in a way that will make the entire school hear him and then acknowledge her existence as he brought attention to her. This also happens in the first 3 episodes alone, by the way, so if you're worried about spoilers, you still have a lot to watch and enjoy, and the series is quite a bit deeper than that, so I doubt that would ruin your enjoyment of the series. This is also far from the only case of puberty syndrome we see. I already mentioned 2 others, but we also get to see people swapping bodies and someone causing time to loop. Overall, I find the different supernatural events incredibly interesting, especially ones we get to see in the first movie, as well as in the second season of the anime, as they go a lot deeper than I at least expected. A great story is not anything without its great characters, and that goes especially for the Rascal Does Not Dream series, as its entire plot is built around creating great and complex characters. This includes both main and side characters, which I find to be expected from the person who also wrote the pet girl at Sakura-so. However, where that series fell short at its story, this series does not thanks to its supernatural elements and how they add to each individual character's development. When the show and its characters decides to get real, it can be insanely realistic, but also give us some fantastic quotes such as the quote, "I live life every day hoping that I'm a slightly kinder person than I was the day before," which is said by the side character by the name of Shoko Makinohara, and it's genuinely a great quote, and I find it to be one to live by. We also get scenes like this elevator scene, which I find incredibly accurate.
今日も寒いな。
そうだね。
そうですね。
Let's be honest, who has not been in an awkward elevator trip like this? Just me? Okay. I absolutely love the dialogue and banter we get between Sakuta and Mai, with Sakuta's deadbeat, honest energy telling her everything on his mind, even if it is something perverted, and Mai taking things that he says and quickly thinks of things to come back with, thanks to her playful sense of humor that Sakuta more than happily indulges with, making them the perfect couple for the show to have its story develop around. The show with these characters that are built around quick quips and an ability to get a good laugh out of its viewers still manages to keep a great dramatic story going when needed, making it so that the comedy doesn't get in the way whatsoever of the larger story being told. Getting to see the different characters and trying to figure out what is causing their issues is great, as you as a viewer can, along with the characters in the story, try and figure out what is causing each character's issues through figuring out what the different stressful or traumatic experiences the characters are going through in their lives during the show, and how, thanks to facing those issues, they can solve them. The soundtrack for the series is also fantastic. Everything from some of the eerie and mysterious themes to some of the more relaxing and calming themes fit the show so well, and the music never once felt out of place, which is something that I really appreciated. Whilst the opening theme Kimi no Sei by the band The Piggies is absolutely amazing and an incredibly catchy theme, I do think the ending theme, Fukashigi no Karte, sorry if I mispronounced that, is what truly knocks it out of the park for this show. The movies do also use this ending theme, which I do really appreciate, and I do have to say that the movies also do generally have a great soundtrack as well, and of course voiceover performances. Whilst I personally think the second season's opening and endings are a bit weaker, I do think they're good as well, so keep that in mind, and the soundtrack is still amazing in the second season. The Rascal Does Not Dream series as a whole is a series that I highly recommend to watch if you haven't, as it is just an absolutely amazing show overall with an amazing cast of characters and truly great story. I actually rewatched the first season in just one day, as I never saw the movies. I watched the rest in 2 more days, meaning I watched the entire Rascal Does Not Dream series as a whole in 3 days total. Yeah, I like binging shows, in case you haven't realized that. When I get really into something, I can get really into something. The only big complaint I have is that I actually at first missed the first movie, as Crunchyroll don't have the first movie, at least here where I happen to live in Sweden, meaning that I skipped it and watched the second and third movie first, and then the second season before I watched the first movie, which did add some plot holes for me as a viewer, as I didn't know the characters knew certain things until I went back and watched the first movie, as I hadn't heard about more than one movie movie for the show, I just straight up did not know it had more than one movie. So when I saw it had 2 of them on Crunchyroll, I assumed that was all the movies it had, and I do think Crunchyroll should maybe title the movies as movies 2 and 3 on Crunchyroll, so people like me don't miss out on important story points and end up confused when watching the rest. So if anyone at Crunchyroll is watching, please do that. Also, hi, I wouldn't mind a sponsorship. On top of this, the first movie is, in all honesty, the best piece of media, obviously excluding the light novels and manga as I haven't read those, surrounding the series, as I personally at least found it to be better than the other movies and both seasons of the show, so it would be a shame if people missed out on it because of this. I personally, as I recently created a My Anime List account, have rated the season 1 as a 9 out of 10, the first movie as a 10 out of 10, the second movie as a 7 out of 10, mostly as it felt weak on its own, as it mostly is there to set up the third movie, which I gave an 8 out of 10, and lastly I gave the second season a 9 out of 10, but these are just my opinions and my ratings of it, so you might personally have different opinions on it. Oh, and if you want to check out my profile, My Anime List, I will link it down in the description below in this section with my socials. With all of that said, have you seen the Rascal Does Not Dream series? If you have, what did you think of it? Feel free to leave your thoughts down in the comment section below. I do actually read them. Like, in case you haven't noticed, I do genuinely read and reply to most comments on my videos. For anyone who hasn't seen it, I highly recommend it, as I personally at least think it is truly amazing. With all of that said, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and if you did, hitting that subscribe button for more content like this would be heavily appreciated. Thank you for watching, I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day. Bye.